The Pokemon anime has always been a great companion to the video games as well as just about every other facet of the franchise, especially because it's able to bring a level of presentation that we just don't see in a majority of the main series games, notably animated action and voice acting. And while watching the anime was normally an exciting way to finally see some of our favorite characters adapted for the screen, not everybody was so lucky. So today I'm going to be talking about a few characters from the video games who never made it into the anime. And to set the ground rules, I will only be discussing the main series television anime and not the several web series that were released from the 2010s onward. Right off the bat, we can include some of the video game protagonists. Because the anime followed Ash Ketchum for the first 8 generations in a row, the boys were often left out of the anime. Ash Ketchum was a stand-in for Red, and despite the fact that I think that they could have such a great younger and older cousin type dynamic, we've never seen Red adapted into the anime. Leaf, who was added in the Fire Red and Leaf Green remakes, never appeared in the anime due to her being a later addition. And we can also count Green, who is kind of Leaf but also technically not, but has existed since the earlier days. It's really confusing. But moving on to Generation 2, the Pokemon Chronicles anime introduces Jimmy and Marina, who are adaptations of Gold and Chris from the Johto games. This series did come out at the tail end of Generation 2, so it was able to bring in the female protagonist, who was only an option in Crystal version, but it's still great they were able to get both of them. Silver does appear in a flashback during these episodes, but he doesn't have a speaking role like many of the other characters I'm going to mention on later on this video. But when Jimmy and Marina already have such minimal roles in the overall anime compared to other characters, it makes the overall absence of Silver that much more noticeable. Sadly, another Johto character we didn't see was Janine, who in the video games took over the Fuchsia City Gym when Koga moved up to the Pokemon League. Dude, I really like Janine. She's cool. She ever show up in the anime? I don't think. I feel like I would remember that. One of my favorite extra characters that I feel gets forgotten all too easily. But speaking of a Pokemon League, we're also missing Will and Karen. Again, 2 new characters added in the video games. Because of the way that the league was structured in the anime, it was easy to leave them out. Hey, Future Gator X here, popping in to say that I can't believe I completely forgot about the Team Rocket admins from Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver because yeah, they just never appeared in the anime. Though the reason they never appeared in the anime is pretty obvious because yeah, even though they technically were in the original Gold and Silver games, 3 of them shared the same sprite and didn't have unique names. And even though during the Diamond and Pearl anime we did have an arc where Lyra shows up, it took place in Sinnoh and didn't really relate to the Johto region all that much. In Generation 3, May would be brought in as a main character, though Brendan only appeared as a non-speaking cameo in the opening scenes of the movies. Wally, one of the prominent rival characters, was completely left out of the anime. The leaders and 1 admin from both Team Aqua and Team Magma showed up, but these are the older versions of Tabitha and Shelly, and that does leave out both versions of Courtney and Matt from the video games. Truly a shame. When it comes to the Pokemon League, every gym leader and both champions met Ash and the gang, but most of the Elite Four members were absent except for Drake, so that includes Sydney, Phoebe, and Glacia. But because of the Battle Frontier arc, the anime gave us every Frontier brain, so I feel like that was a trade-off that they decided to go with. Generation 4 continues the trend of making Dawn one of the main characters, while Lucas is relegated to a non-speaking cameo in one of the movies. He even battled against Brendan. And I'm mentioning the game protagonists here because yeah, they appear but not necessarily as their own characters, and comparatively much less so than Jimmy, but more so than some of the future ones we would see. But really, the Diamond and Pearl anime as a whole was able to include most of the major characters in the video games, though that ends at the Frontier brains, while we see Palmer because he's Barry's dad. Thornton, Dahlia, Derek, and Argento were never animated, though Caitlyn would appear later on. Moving on to Generation 5, we start things off with a big list. Rather than having a protagonist join the main cast, Iris traveled alongside Ash for the series. So with Black and White having sequels with different protagonists, we're missing Hilda, Hilbert, Rosa, and Nate, as well as a rival Hugh. The protagonists are often a blank slate, though it is kinda sad to not see them being one of the main characters or some non-speaking cameos, but I think that Hugh deserved to be brought into the anime. Surprisingly, we do see every gym leader, even the Black 2 and White 2 editions, but we go right back to most of the Elite Four being absent. Again, we would see Caitlyn, but not Chantal, Grimsley, and Marshall. Team Plasma do serve as villains for one of the arcs in the anime, and most of the major players are here, but not the Shadow Triad. Also, the 7 Sages only show up in a flashback, so we don't get Zinzolin as one of the main leaders. Generation 6 actually has a pretty good record. We do go back to the usual thing of a female protagonist, as Serena is one of the main characters, but Caleb is nowhere to be found. Aside from that, we do have every gym leader, every Pokemon League member, and everybody in Team Flare, even Zerosic and all of his baddies. Like, that's impressive. But they did miss literally the biggest character in Pokemon X and Y, AZ. I get that there was already a lot going on here and they didn't even touch on the ultimate weapon in the main series anime, so it makes sense that they would leave him out. Also, I would count Emma as an important character for her role in the post-game, but yeah, that's quite a crazy story, so I get not including it either. Generation 7, as usual, the protagonists are excluded, but I think basically everybody else appears in the anime at some point. That's pretty impressive as well. All I can think of are the Ultra Recon Squad, Fyco, Solira, Dulce, and Sosi. And while we did see Ultra Necrozma as well as all of the other Ultra Beasts, the story there is handled a little differently. I really do like the Ultra Recon Squad. I think they're pretty underrated, and so it would have been nice to see them in the anime as well, but Generation 7 already gets the points for including basically everybody else. In Generation 8, yeah, you can guess we never see the protagonist, but given the way that Pokemon Journeys was structured, there were quite a few important characters that we didn't get to see initially. Though I won't discuss that all too much because now in Pokemon Horizons, that format is allowing us to travel back and meet some of those characters that we never got to. So I think I'm going to include Generation 8 with Generation 9 as currently ongoing anime because sort of technically it is. But I will mention that Marnie and Hop showed up during Pokemon Journeys, though Bede did not, so that trio is kind of incomplete. So yeah, in Generation 9, no protagonists like I said, but more and more characters are being progressively brought in because again, that one is still ongoing. So I think we'll have to wait until it concludes to see a definitive list of excluded characters. But from everything we're seeing so far, they're actually getting to most of the characters pretty quickly. But when it comes to Pokemon Legends Arceus, basically the entire game has never been adapted into the anime. Characters, settings, story. There was one episode during the Arceus special that showed a little scene of Ray as yet another non-speaking cameo, but most of that special takes place in modern day. That's just a little bit at the very end. That's actually sort of crazy to think that all of these characters that filled a whole video game and made some great memories will probably never be brought into the main series anime. Because we're long past Pokemon Legends Arceus, and even then it was in a very small window at the very end of Generation 8 right before the hype began for Generation 9. So yeah, I feel like we really just missed that opportunity to bring in any of these characters to the main series anime. So I feel like that is just about where we would end things. Again, there are several web series where we get to see these characters animated and usually better done than in the main Pokemon anime series, but it's still interesting to see these developments. No longer does the anime attempt to closely follow the video games, making sure to bring every story beat to the screen. Instead, they're both able to do their own things. And while I enjoy every web series that we get, I would really love if we got even more. Obviously, not every character, storyline, and video game needs to be adapted into the main series anime, but given the quality of the story and the characters in the games as of late, it would just be really nice. So let me know what you think in the comments below and tell me which of your favorite characters has never appeared in the anime. Anyway, I should get back to waiting patiently for the day we finally get a Rezu in literally anything else. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the great Gators, Michael Snyder, Koi13, Cemetery Hill, Pastel Blood, Cosmo Zero, Mr. Saturn, Rainfrux, Cheez-It62, Alex Switch, Shiny Hunter, Lockadox, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclaw947, Taijirai, Justin R, Phantom, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, and sometimes early videos, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well for more memes, but anyway, this is GatorX, and I'll catch you all later.
What was that? There's more to being a Pokemon than battling with Ash and Pikachu.
It's incredible! Go Time Fusion!
Catch all new monsters and new characters in never-before-seen adventures.
You're in for the fight of your life!
The kid's got guts, I'll give him that.
Pokemon Chronicles premieres Saturday, June 3rd at 7. Unleash the Pocket Monsters.
Who's your daddy?
Only Toonami on Cartoon Network.